66 years ago, on Friday, September 7, 1956, the FC Santos football team met Corinthians. On that day, at just 15 years old, a boy born in Tres Carracos made his debut. From that day on, that boy, known and idolized by the entire football world, known as Pele, was to be one of the greatest footballers of all time and a true god in Brazil. Stay tuned, dear friends, to learn the story of Edson Arantes do Nascimento, or better known as Pele. On Wednesday, October 23, 1940, Dondinho and Celeste Arantes gave birth to their first child, whom they named Edson, after the American inventor Thomas Edison. At home, little Edson was nicknamed Dico, and his schoolmates called him Pele, laughing at him for not being able to pronounce the name of his favorite player Bile. He had a tough childhood, marked by poverty, but football was in his blood and he started playing football like all the old football legends, on the Maidan. He didn't have a ball, so he and his friends improvised the football by various methods. He started playing at various amateur clubs near his hometown, and as a teenager joined a club called Radium. Pele had an offer from Bangu Atletico Club in 1956, but Celeste, Pele's mother, refused because she did not want him to travel to a big city, in her words. Pele was also offered to play for the Bauru-based Sport Club Noroeste. His coach at Bauru Atletico Club, Waldemar de Brito, was opposed to the plan, believing that Pele might be hurt while playing for Noroeste. Brito then advised him to visit Santos Football Club. Pele's mother was originally opposed to the plan since she did not want Pele to become a soccer player. Nevertheless, she was finally persuaded, and Pele traveled to Santos with Brito. Brito invited Pele to Santos in 1956 to try out for the professional Santos Football Club team, claiming that the 15-year-old would be the best footballer in the world. At the Urbano Caldera Stadium, Pele wowed Santos coach Luis Alonso Perez and signed a professional contract with the club in June 1956. Pele was paid 6,000 cruzeiros each month under the contract, money he sent to his mother. Pele began his career with Santos amateur team, where he scored 13 goals in 13 matches. He made his professional debut against Corinthians de Santo André on September 7, 1956, aged 15, and played admirably in the 7-1 win, scoring his first professional goal in the match. Zaluer, a former Corinthians goalkeeper, self-published a book after retiring and working as a broker, presenting himself as goalkeeper of Pele's first goal. Pele began the 1957 season on the bench because he was thought too young and because he was competing with Emanuel Del Vecchio, Santos regular. Pele drew the attention of Rio Grande do Sul managers earlier that year, when Santos paid a visit to the state. Brasil de Pelotas attempted to exchange forward Joaquinho for Pele, but Santos coach rejected. Meanwhile, Grêmio spoke with Santos about the prospect of loaning Pele. Pele first came to prominence at the Rio São Paulo tournament in 1957. Despite being a substitute in more than half of the matches, he was the team's top scorer in that tournament, alongside Dorval. By early June, Pele had played 30 matches and scored 18 goals between friendlies and official matches. That same month, Santos and Vasco da Gama formed a team to play in the Morumbi International Tournament, organized by São Paulo to raise funds for the construction of their stadium. As the combined matches were to be held in the Maracanã, the Vascaína jersey was chosen. Pele scored 3 goals in a 6-1 victory over the Portuguese team Belenenses in the opening game. Pele would still score a goal in the following game, against Flamengo, and another in the final game, against São Paulo, for a total of 5 goals in 3 games. Pele's achievements were lauded by the press, who prophesied the birth of a future Silico star, and drew the attention of Brazilian national soccer team coach Silvio Perillo. Pele was summoned to the Silico for the first time a month after the tournament ended, despite having only been in the game for 10 months. Vasco, who tried unsuccessfully to recruit the player twice that year, was also impressed by his performances. Pele has declared himself to be a Vascaíno, Vasco native, on various occasions. In an interview for the Museu da Imagem e do Som in 1967, while still playing for Santos, he declared that Vasco was his heart team. In an interview in 1977, he claimed that, "The team of my heart has always been Vasco." Pele was appointed honorary member of Vasco in 2021. Pele maintained his status as the Santos attack starter after being called up to the Silico, and Del Vecchio was sold to Verona, wearing the number 10 shirt. With 57 goals, Pele would be Santos' best scorer this season. The first official competition Santos participated in was the 1958 Rio São Paulo tournament, where the squad finished 7th. Pele, along with Pepe, led the squad in scoring with 8 goals. Pele had a spectacular showing against America in this competition, earning him the moniker King, which he would use for the remainder of his career. Pele scored 4 goals to help Santos win 5-3. Nelson Rodriguez, a journalist and dramatist who was watching the game in Maracanã, was pleased by the players' performance. Rodriguez published a book called Pele's Royalty in his honor. Pele has a significant edge over the other players, that of feeling like a king, from head to toe, the writer wrote in it. Still referring to the mongrel complex in the 1958 World Cup, which will take place in Sweden in the following months, Nelson Rodriguez states, "With Pele on the squad, and others like him, no one will travel to Sweden with the soul of a mongrel. Others will quake in our presence." Pele arrived in Sweden with a knee injury, but on his return from the treatment room, his teammates united and lobbied for his inclusion. His debut match came against the Soviet Union in the 3rd round of the 1958 FIFA World Cup, where he assisted Vava's second goal, and at the time he was the youngest player ever to play in the World Cup. Brazil led France 2-1 at halftime in the semi-final, and then Pele scored a hat-trick, becoming the youngest player in World Cup history to do so. Pele became the youngest player in World Cup final history on June 29, 1958, at the age of 17 years and 249 days. He scored twice in the final, in which Brazil defeated Sweden 5-2 in Stockholm. Pele struck the post before Vava scored twice to put Brazil ahead. Pele's first goal, which he fired over a defender before volleying into the corner of the net, was named one of the finest in World Cup history. When Pele scored his 5th goal in the final, "I have to be honest and admit I felt like clapping," Swedish midfielder Sigvard Parling later said after Pele's second goal. That same year, at club level, he managed to win the Paulista Championship with Santos. Time passed and a World Cup was once again on the horizon, and Pele, along with all the Brazilian legends of the time, were going to Chile to win the trophy again. Pele was regarded as the finest player in the world at the commencement of the 1962 World Cup. The first goal of the 1962 World Cup in Chile first game against Mexico was assisted by Pele, who also scored the second goal to make it 2-0 after outrunning 4 defenders. The following game, he was hurt while trying a long shot against Czechoslovakia. As a result, coach Amor Moreira had to modify the roster just once throughout the whole competition, keeping him out for the remainder. Amarildo filled in and did well for the remainder of the competition. The next 4 years were successful for the club, which won the Brazilian title in 1962, 1963, 1964 and 1965, and at continental level, Santos, led by Pele, won the Copa Libertadores twice, in 1962 and 1963, as well as the Intercontinental Cups in the same years. Brazil had players like Garrincha, Gilmar, and Jaume Santos in addition to other talents like Jairzinho, Tosto, and Gerson during the 1966 World Cup in England, when Pele was the most well-known football player in the world, raising expectations for the team. After only 3 games, Brazil fell out in the first round. Pele was wounded as a result of vicious fouls committed by Portuguese and Bulgarian defenders against him during the World Cup. Pele became the first player to score in 3 consecutive FIFA World Cups when he converted a free kick against Bulgaria, although he missed the second game against Hungary due to an injury sustained as a consequence of severe fouling by the Bulgarians. After the first game, according to his coach, every team will take care of him in the same manner. Vicente Fiola, the Brazilian coach, summoned Pele back for the last, important encounter against Portugal at Goodison Park in Liverpool, even though he was still suffering from the defeat of Brazil. Fiola replaced the whole defense, including the goalie, but kept the same shape in midfield from the first game. João Moreira of Portugal fouled Pele during the match, but referee George McCabe did not dismiss him. This judgment is now regarded as one of the worst in World Cup history. Due to the fact that substitutions were not permitted at the time, Pele was forced to finish the game hobbling on the pitch. Brazil was eliminated from the tournament as a consequence of their defeat against the Portuguese team, which was led by Eusebio. He made the promise to never play in another World Cup match after this one, a commitment he would later break. The 1970 World Cup was the last World Cup at which Pele managed to wow the football world. Brazil's national team arrived in Mexico to face Romania, England and Czechoslovakia. Against Romania, Pele scored 2 goals, one of them from 20 yards, and Brazil won the match against Romania, which at that time, under coach Angelo Niculescu, was the first team to use the tiki-taka tactic. The 1970 World Cup was the last World Cup at which Pele managed to wow the football world. Brazil's national team arrived in Mexico to face Romania, England and Czechoslovakia. Against Romania, Pele scored 2 goals, one of them from 20 yards, and Brazil won the match against Romania, which at that time, under coach Angelo Niculescu, was the first team to use the tiki-taka tactic. This was followed by 4-1 wins over Czechoslovakia and 1-0 against England. Brazil eliminated Peru in the quarter-finals and Uruguay in the semi-finals, before defeating Italy in the final on June 21, 1970, with Pele being the leading scorer in Brazil's 4-1 win. Pele left Brazilian club football after the 1974 season, his 19th with Santos, however he occasionally still played for Santos in legitimate competitive games. In order to join with the New York Cosmos of the North American Soccer League for the 1975 season, he emerged from semi-retirement a year later. The Cosmos debuted Pele at a raucous press presentation at New York's 21 Club. The club's media spokesperson, John O'Reilly, said, "In the United States, we had superstars, but none on the same level as Pele. Everyone wanted to interact with him, shake his hand, and take his picture." Pele was acknowledged for considerably raising interest in sport in the US, despite being far past his peak at this point. On June 15, 1975, against the Dallas Tornado at Downing Stadium, Pele made his professional debut with the Cosmos, scoring 1 goal in a 2-2 tie. Numerous more celebrities were able to play in North America because to Pele. Giorgio Chinaglia, Franz Beckenbauer, and Carlos Alberto, a former Santos teammate, all followed him to the Cosmos. Other players joined the league during the following several years, including Gordon Banks, Johan Cruyff, Eusebio, Bobby Moore, and George Best. On October 1, 1977, Pele played his final game for the Cosmos and Santos in an exhibition game. The game was broadcast live across the world on ABC's Wide World of Sports and was played in front of a sold-out crowd at Giant Stadium. Along with Muhammad Ali and Bobby Moore, Pele's father and wife were all present for the game. "Love is more essential than anything we can take in life," Pele said to the crowd before the game began. Pele played the first half with the Cosmos and the second half with Santos. The Cosmos won the match 2-1, and Pele scored his final goal of his career with a 30-yard free kick for the Cosmos. The phrase, "the beautiful game," has also been associated with football by Pele. He was a frequent scorer who excelled at reading opponents in the area and converting opportunities with either foot using a precise and powerful shot. Pele was a complete forward with excellent vision and intellect. He was also known for his accurate passing and his ability to connect with teammates and provide them assists. Pele was also a dedicated team player. He played a number of offensive roles throughout his early career. His diverse set of abilities allowed him to play in a more withdrawn role, as an inside forward or second striker, or out wide, even though he typically played inside the penalty area as a primary striker or center forward. Later in his career, he began to play a deeper playmaking role behind the forwards, frequently taking on the role of an attacking midfielder. With his distinctive playing style, Pele blended physical strength, endurance, and agility with speed, creativity, and technical skill. Pele was chosen as a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador in 1994. Pele was designated Extraordinary Minister for Sport in 1995 by Brazilian President Fernando Henrique Cardoso. He then put out a piece of legislation known as the Pele Bill to lessen corruption in Brazilian football. In 1998, Cardoso abolished the position of Minister of Sports. Pele was charged with participating in a corruption incident that involved the theft of $700,000 from UNICEF in 2001. Although there was no evidence to support the accusation, UNICEF refuted it. It was said that money donated to Pele's firm for a benefit match was not returned once it was cancelled. At a ceremony held in Buckingham Palace in 1997, Queen Elizabeth II bestowed upon him the honorary knighthood. After Pele's television firm was turned down in a competition for the Brazilian domestic rights to the 1994 World Cup, Pele openly accused Brazilian football official Ricardo Teixeira of corruption in 1993. An animosity between the two lasted 8 years as a result of Pele's claims. Ju Havlang, the president of FIFA, banned Pele from the 1994 FIFA World Cup draw as a result of the incident. It was believed that the ban's detractors hurt Havlang's prospects of being re-elected as FIFA's president in 1994. Pele is one of the most celebrated athletes in football history and has regularly been named as the finest player ever. He is among the most successful and well-liked sports celebrities of the 20th century. After making his debut in the 1958 World Cup, he earned the moniker O Rei, the King. Johan Cruyff, a Dutch football legend, claimed that among his contemporaries, Pele was the only footballer who beyond the bounds of rationality. Carlos Alberto Torres, the captain of the Brazil team that won the 1970 World Cup, stated, his big secret was improvisation. He completed the actions in a single motion. He had an exceptional sense of the game. His striking partner during the 1970 World Cup, Tosto, said of Pele, Pele was the finest, he was just faultless. Off the field, he maintains a cheerful and constant smile. He never exhibits poor behavior. Pele was his favorite role. Regarding the admiration he saw, his Brazilian teammate Clodoaldo remarked, in some nations they wanted to touch him, in some they wanted to kiss him. Others even kissed the ground where he was walking. It was simply stunning, in my opinion. The 1974 World Cup winning captain of West Germany, Franz Beckenbauer, declared that Pele was the best player ever. He held the throne for 20 years. Nobody can even come close to him. The Albert Einstein Hospital, where Pele was receiving treatment, said on December 21, 2022, that Pele needed more care relating to renal and cardiac dysfunctions since his tumor had progressed. At the age of 82, Pele passed away on December 29, 2022 from multiple organ failure, a side effect of colon cancer. Current athletes, such as Neymar, Cristiano Ronaldo, Kylian Mbappe, and Lionel Messi, as well as other prominent athletes, celebrities, and international leaders, paid tribute. A 3-day period of national mourning has been established by Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Pele received special lighting at Christ the Redeemer in Brazil, Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, and Wembley Stadium in London. La Liga matches in Spain observed a minute's silence, while Olympique de Marseille's Stade Velodrome observed a minute's applause. Pele's funeral will take place on the 2nd and the 3rd of January 2023 at Santos Stadium. Pele will be buried at the Necropole Ecumenica Memorial after the ceremony. Although Pele's body has closed its eyes, his memory will live on forever. Along with his former national teammates who are no longer with us, such as Didi, Vava, Garrincha, somewhere up there is a great team, and the memory of the glories that have passed away, such as Johan Cruyff, Eusebio, or Bobby Moore, will live on forever. Fly smoothly to heaven, Prince.